Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Hi, everybody. Welcome back, per usual. Thank you for listening as always. And just a quick reminder, as I've mentioned before, and I receive no kickbacks from this, but if you're interested in 15% off of any books or documentation or anything that is available at armreg.co.uk, please bounce over there to their website and you can use the promo code American Education FM. And again, you'll get 15% off of what they offer there. Plenty of books, again, about real history, not the fake stuff they teach you in school. And there you have it. So again, American Education FM, for your promo code over there. I receive no kickbacks. It's just good content, good stuff, good information. Great additions to your library as well. No doubt about it. Okay. I have a variety of topics here to bring up. Lots of geopolitical stuff, a couple of education-related things, and believe it or not, no jab stories. No jab news. It unfortunately just continues to be kind of the same. It's unfortunate, but again, we can pray for these individuals, and I certainly hope that people do, but if people don't want to wake up and people don't want to learn, I don't know how else to help them. If they want to turn a blind eye to what's happening to themselves and the people around them, I'm not sure what else can happen. So anyway, with that aside, let me get into this now geopolitically. I want to mention the so-called debate the other day with Donald Trump and Kamala Harris, and of course the media participating in the debate as well. What is beyond predictable has to do with all of the spoon bending that you would expect takes place with these so-called debates. And the spoon bending is, I find, again, to be remarkably fascinating because it doesn't even have to happen. Because there is no spoon. There was no debate, really. It wasn't a debate. It wasn't anything that Donald Trump had to participate in. He had no obligation to. It was Kamala Harris the entire time who was dodging debates and putting off debates. But again, Donald Trump didn't even have to be there. So once the whole thing started, and I watched every minute of it, and it was exactly what you would expect. Kamala Harris was, again, very scripted. She tried to basically throw out every single thing that she could possibly remember and or think about. Whether she was wearing an earpiece or not, for me, is irrelevant. I wouldn't put it past her, but it's not a large point, in my opinion, because they do that stuff all the time. But again, she came out of the gate dry-mouthed, nervous, and just trying to basically spew all of her emotional takes on a number of issues right out of the gate. And then, of course, it later came to pass that the female moderator is a sorority sister of hers. So, again, this kind of, undue influence and favoritism and sort of nepotistic behavior, although they're not related, but certainly the favoritism that exists among these individuals who know one another or are familiar with one another is beyond evident. Again, it's ABC. The fact that it's being carried by any news outlet should tell people that it's going to be bent in one particular way. Here's what I found interesting, of course, at the end, which again shouldn't shock anybody. When the whole thing was over, the entire event, again, that didn't even have to exist because Donald Trump has this wrapped up. He had it wrapped up before he allegedly got shot. It didn't even take that. Even though, again, that changed a great deal of people's minds and swayed them to his side of the proverbial fence. Either way, at the end, what I found fascinating, and I bounced around different channels to see what they were all saying, and sure enough, in lockstep, they all got their memo. They all got the memo to basically say that Kamala Harris did a great job, she's competent, she knows exactly what she's talking about, and Donald Trump had a bad night. They were all saying it. I first listened to Fox and Brett Baer, and out of his stupid mouth, because he's clearly been bought and sold and physically threatened. In fact, you may recall a number of years ago, I believe it was during the Hillary campaign when she was running for president, that Brett Baer and his entire family were run off the road on some trip that they were on. and one of his children was hurt in the crash, but everybody else was okay, just banged up and bruised a little bit. So, running cars off the road is a strategy that the enemy has, among others. Either way, once he got done talking rather, and made it abundantly clear that he seemed to think that Donald Trump had a bad night and Kamala Harris did a great job and blah, 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 they all started going around the foxhorn and they all started saying the exact same thing. I then switched over to CNN. They all started saying the exact same thing. Kamala Harris had a great night. She's beyond competent. She showed everybody she's a leader and blah, blah, blah. And Donald Trump got really angry and he got frustrated and it just wasn't a good look and this, that, and the other. It was ridiculous. Again, they all got the memo. They either all got the memo before, during, or right after the election was finished. Because only individuals like that on all those separate quote-unquote networks, and they're not separate, they're all the same, only once receiving the memo on their talking points from, again, either the CIA or whoever they receive them from these days, only they, again, would all agree with one another on watching the exact same thing. Which, again, if anybody was watching it and being objective, it was beyond evident that Donald Trump has a right to yell. He has a right to get angry with the state of affairs in the country. Kamala Harris was not doing that. She was pretending to be concerned. Emphasis on the word pretending, because she isn't concerned because she's part of the problem. That's why Trump's closing statement was the best, and he got the last word, which was even better. Because he made her look terrible because she was making herself look terrible in the process. That's my 2 cents on the entire thing. But again, it's spoon bending because the entire thing didn't even have to happen. And if it happens again in the future, know that it doesn't even have to happen. They shouldn't even have another one. In fact, I think Donald Trump on 9/11 called into Fox and Friends. I could have this wrong, but I saw the headline anyway. And he called in and he basically was asked whether or not he would do another debate with Kamala Harris, only this time on Fox News. And he said, yeah, sure, no problem. He said, but I'm not going to do it if Brett Baer and Martha McCallum are going to be the moderators. I thought that was perfect. And he's right. Brett Baer and Martha McCallum sat there while the 2020 election was being stolen, in particular Brett Baer. And he just read the headlines and read the pieces of paper that was in front of him and read that teleprompter and said, Arizona's won and Arizona's gone for Joe Biden and Arizona's been called first, and that's the way that it is. These are traitors to our country. These are not individuals that are beholden to the law of the land. They are beholden, unfortunately, to the contracts that they sign to these Jewish lobby media individuals and conglomerates that basically run the country, or seek to anyway, and seek to brainwash everybody who's paying attention. There is no spoon. There's no need to bend it. Who won? Who said this? Who said that? Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. He's got it wrapped up in a fair and free election where every vote gets tallied. He's already got it wrapped up by a large margin. It's over. But they have to do whatever they have to do as TV and quote-unquote entertainment to try to make it look close so that people keep watching them and keep watching the drama and keep watching the entire sideshow. Again, it's just political theater. And that's exactly what the slave class loves. And they love commenting on it, and they love paying attention to it, and they love stirring the pot. Don't try to bend the spoon. I'm going to keep saying it. It's too good of a philosophical example. Don't bend it one way or another or try to control it or what have you. Understand there is no spoon. It doesn't have to happen. There doesn't have to be a debate. But if the debates are taking place and being allowed to take place by the good guys, that's happening on purpose. It's happening because at the end of every debate, the amount of facts that come out about the involvement of people in the debate, or what was said or what was not said, or how things are spun in one direction or another, always ends up getting leveled out with the truth. Always. Again, out of the gate, everybody was saying that Kamala Harris won the debate or that it was relatively even back and forth. And then just a little bit of time passes, just a little bit. And the next thing that you see is everybody on social media who has a brain in their skull is putting forth a poll asking any of their followers or anybody who comes across their poll who won the so-called debate. And overwhelmingly, everybody said it was Trump. Overwhelmingly. 70, 80, 90% were saying that Trump won. That means that on all those different platforms, that delegitimizes any other poll that comes out or anything else that any other media outlet says. If anybody believes that this is an accident, it is not. This is the plan. This is the plan. And again, I'm going to bring it up again. I keep occasionally seeing a post or a listener of the show or whomever, somebody who comes across my channel or even, posts on Gab or whatever, and they'll say that the Q drops were a psychological operation. I've been over this before. There are positive and negative psychological operations. Those Q posts were a positive psychological operation. It was purposely designed to wake up people, galvanize people, join people together in the effort of nationalism, God, the Constitution, and caring about one another, to communicate the truth and learn about the truth. Emphasis on the word communicate, because everybody knows that communication turns into action. That's why there are more podcasts than ever before now. That's why there are more live streaming shows. That's why these live streaming shows and podcasts get more views than the mainstream media television shows do in prime time, quote unquote. People are managing their time more today than they ever have in the past when it comes to learning factual information. They're not sitting on their asses waiting for the Sunday paper to show up at the end of their driveway. No one with a brain is doing that anymore. That's not how you get factual information. That's why it says in the Q post, we are the news. You are the news now. Handle with care. Yeah, because we are. Because we have time, energy, and we want to spend our time and spend our energy on getting the truth out to other people. If anybody thinks that that's some negative psychological operation, you've lost your mind. You're out to lunch. Your eyes are closed, your ears are closed, and you're clearly not saying what the real truth is, because again, you either weren't following along at the time, or you just don't want to go back and look at it now and learn what you missed. But for those of us that were involved from the start, on those Q drops and paying attention to what it was and what was going on and where it was leading, and of course where our own minds were leading when it came to finding out factual information, we can see exactly what's happening here. Let me give you another example. I can believe this. Me personally, I can believe this, and I know a lot of other people can too. But there are people who still don't have this figured out. Even DC Drano, over there on X, that Rogan O'Handy guy, he doesn't even have this figured out. Or he does and he's not telling people, but he's clearly a fool. Because he seems to think that Joe Biden showing up to whatever garage Joe Biden was showing up at the other day, where he's surrounded by kids wearing Trump shirts, and an old-timer has Joe Biden put on a Trump hat, and there's MAGA shirts everywhere in that room, and clearly no one is a Joe Biden supporter. Why on earth would Democrats and or Joe Biden, or even any campaign on the so-called left, allow Joe Biden to go there and do that, knowing full well that there would be cameras, cell phones, microphones, people asking questions, photo ops, the whole thing? Why would they put him in that situation? Who is that gonna? Who does that benefit? I mean, I love it. Who does that benefit? He's clearly controlled. He's clearly not the president of the United States. And it's not that he's even controlled by bad guys anymore, if he ever was. He may have been for a minute. He isn't now. And it's painfully obvious that's the case. That's political suicide for any political party. To take the so-called current president, which he isn't, executive orders, again, Insurrection Act being signed. I've been over all this, and you know this as well. But there's no way you would do that. Beyond political suicide for an individual or even, again, a specific campaign, it's political suicide for an entire party. But we've also been told you're watching the systematic destruction of the old guard in those Q posts. Not an accident. It's very difficult for people to comprehend the things that they do not know and the things that they think they know in the world that they think they live in, when in fact that world does not exist. It's completely fabricated, totally made up. It's pretend on top of pretend. There's just no way around it. Again, you had Joe Biden freewheeling and shooting from the hip and talking with this old timer in this garage about, being an old guy. Well, I'm an old guy and I'm forgetful and goop, goop, goop. And then he asks this old guy if he wants, Biden's hat signed or something like that. I mean, he looks at Biden and says, you want to sign that hat for me? He's like, yeah, I'll sign it for you, no problem. Again, puts on the MAGA hat instead, takes pictures with kids who are wearing nothing but Donald Trump shirts that say MAGA all over him and his face all over him. He's not doing it because he quote unquote hates Kamala Harris. He's not doing it to make some political dig. He's doing it because he's controlled. There are people around him moving him from place to place to give a particular look to show people that you're watching a movie. And this movie has a script. Again, it doesn't mean that bad things aren't happening. It doesn't mean that people aren't getting killed. It doesn't mean that people aren't losing their jobs, losing money, and struggling, and downright panicking about the state of affairs right now, which is exactly why Donald Trump was angry in the debate, because he had a right to be. He has a right to be. He's tired, and he's fed up with this sort of lackadaisical, casual behavior from communism. So that's just an example, I think, again, of, well, I know it's an example, but it's a perfect example of what happens when you try to stop bending the spoon and you think deeper into it and you just understand there is no spoon. There's no spoon to even be bent here. Something is going on. For the layperson, you would have to look at them and say something is going on that is very unusual. Wouldn't you say? And then they would have to look at you and be like, yeah, things seem pretty odd. Well, why is that? What's going on? What's different this time around than anything that's happened in the past? Any other previous presidential campaign? Look at all of the different things that have happened just this year alone. It's amazing. What an amazing time to be alive. It truly is incredible. It's horrific. But thank God for some of us, we're calm about all of it and we can see through it and pass the spoon, and we're not sitting here trying to play ping pong with one political debate or another, or one political ideology or even party over another. There's way more to what's going on here, which again is why I always like to use 9/11 as one of those examples, because that day and any anniversary associated with it should be another example, or certainly a good time, to try to wake people up to what really happened on that particular day. Again, it's the season for it. Why not? Why not use that as another example? So on 9/11, I mean, the memes that get moved around and the videos and the articles and the content, it's unavoidable. It's absolutely unavoidable. And that should show people, I think, it should show people how much people care about the truth and how that entire movement has changed everything. The Q drops clearly galvanized people and motivated people to do their own research, to read, to dig, and then to share what they learn, because that's the natural human process. You don't just learn information and not say anything to anyone about it. You don't learn information and not want to write about it and then share what you write with other people. That's a natural progression of communication. That's the way that it goes. So I get very tired when I hear, for example, the likes of Dave Janda or, again, the Sarah Westalls or whomever, who say things like, there is no plan, everybody needs to get off the couch, and sitting around and waiting for something good to happen isn't the way that things get done, blah, blah, blah. Who said that anybody's doing that? The only people sitting on the couch not doing anything are the people who aren't awake. And that number of people is dwindling. Now, we've, of course, crossed the point of no return when it comes to the shots, but even so, individuals who are jabbed are still waking up. And they're still waking up not only to what they've done to themselves, but what's actually happening around them. And it's not that that's an easy process, we all know that, but at the exact same time, nowhere in those posts did it say anything about just sitting around and crossing your fingers and hoping for the best. Absolutely not. It's just not the way that the human mind works, and it's not the way that a nationalistic collective works. They always work, perhaps individually, on their own, at some point, maybe even again at the very beginning, and then they reach out to numerous other individuals and share what they know. I mean, I'm a perfect example of that. I would even think that someone like Jesse James and Outcast and the Dangerous Info podcast and those guys over there, same thing. Perfect example of that. You learn on your own first, quietly. You might share what you're starting to learn with those in your immediate sphere around you, and certainly the ones who want to listen and the ones that want to learn. And then that grows. And now there are hundreds, if not thousands, of people who listen to this show. Whereas if you were to reverse time 10 years ago, I didn't have a show and there weren't hundreds, if not thousands, of people listening to anything that I was saying and or doing, because I was learning on my own and sharing things, again, with my immediate surrounding at the time, who were willing to learn and willing to listen. And that's a good thing. But look how much we've all grown over the last 10 years. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. God has his hand on this. There's no doubt about it. But again, it doesn't mean that bad things aren't going to happen. It's war. That's always going to be the case. So speaking of the election, and let me mention this too. Again, there's already news headlines out there about the United States Postal Service anticipates trouble regarding mail-in ballots and this, that, and the other. Again, whether the headline is real or not, I mean, the headline is real, but whether it's scripted or not is almost another matter. We're certain that there's going to be election irregularities. That comes with the territory, and that makes sense because it's happened with every election beforehand. There's also this, and this was published by the U.S. Secret Service Media Relations on 9/11 of all times. And here's what they said. They said the following, quote, "The 2025 counting and certification of electoral votes in Washington, D.C. on January 6, 2025 has been designated a national special security event by the Secretary of Homeland Security." It says this marks the first time a national special security event designation has been granted for a certification of electoral votes and follows a request made by the D.C. mayor to designate this event a national special security event. Various reports, including from the House Select January 6th Committee and the Government Accountability Office, has also called for DHS Secretary to consider a national special security event designation for future certification of electoral votes. Translation, we're going to put up a bunch of fences so nobody can get in. If we steal it from you and you don't like it, too bad. That's essentially what they're saying. It says, quote, again, if this is to be believed, it says, quote, national special security events are events of the highest national significance, said Eric Rannigan, the special agent in charge of the U.S. Secret Service's Dignitary Protective Division. Quote, the U.S. Secret Service, in collaboration with our federal, state, and local partners, are committed to developing and implementing a comprehensive and integrated security plan to ensure the safety and security of this event and its participants, unquote. It says the formal planning process is underway with the formation of an executive steering committee. The executive steering committee is made up of senior representatives from federal, state, and local law enforcement and public safety partners and will begin convening in the coming weeks. It says, in addition to the 2025 counting and certification of electoral votes on January 6th, the 2025 presidential inauguration on January 20th was previously designated a national special security event, and planning has been ongoing for several months. This designation allows for significant resources from the federal government as well as from the state and local partners to be utilized in a comprehensive security plan. When an event is designated a national special security event, the U.S. Secret Service assumes its mandated role as the lead agency for the design and implementation of the operational security plan, unquote. It's going to sound like spoon bending, but this can be done. I mean, this can go a couple of different ways and can be interpreted numerous different ways, I think, depending on, again, what the perception of the so-called outcome of the so-called election would be. Not to mention the simple fact that the U.S. Secret Service is running point on all of this with the apparent approval of everyone, including the mayor and, the mayor of D.C., so to speak, and certainly everybody else involved. And, of course, the Department of Homeland Security, because they're the ones that operate the U.S. Secret Service. This can be taken just about any way. So I'm not going to read too much into it. I think it's pretty clear they don't want people around, regardless of the outcome. If certifying the 2020 election in January of 2021, the last time around, if that entire certification process was illegal and proved the actual insurrection, which again, in doing that and not asking for legal proof that there was no voter fraud, or allowing, again, individuals to look into voter fraud, and of course, no judges looked at the case of voter fraud. Even Donald Trump said that during the debate, and he was right. Of course, those laws in certain states have changed now, which is a good thing. But even so, does that mean that all of the congressional individuals, Senate and House of Representatives, and all the people that were certifying these votes, so to speak, does that mean that all of those individuals back then were basically incriminating themselves? And are they all now guilty of certifying an illegal election? Because not everybody voted to certify the election, but most of them did, and I think that's pretty clear. So again, this is one of those sit back and just watch it happen kind of things for me. It's going to be real interesting to just kind of see what happens on that particular day. Of course, everything leading up to that day is going to be interesting. That goes without saying as well. But again, the actual event of January 6th, 2025, I think is going to be something to watch and something to pay attention to. And again, it's also been stated, and I brought it up on the show also, is that there's nothing keeping January 6th from just sort of becoming a regular back and forth, just a giant psyop from one end to the other. And I think, again, the first time around has shown people that even if you're on the proverbial right wing of things, that you might do well to not show up because they're going to incriminate you one way or another. So would an event on a new January 6th here coming up in 2025, in particular if Trump wins or even if he doesn't, would they have individuals dressed in MAGA uniforms and hats and shirts and the whole thing? Would they have them show up and try to start trouble and even have that coordinated by the bad guys, so to speak. I mean, it's possible. But it's basically just become, again, another marker and a buoy in the water on a calendar to basically see what's going to happen in sort of an all eyes on kind of thing. So I don't know. It's just a sit back and watch thing for me. But that's an interesting statement by the U.S. Secret Service, I think. And, of course, Homeland Security is running point on it, but so is the Secret Service as well. So there you go. Okay. There's also this. Let me spend a little time on the business of Springfield, Ohio. It's, again, a lot of spoon bending, but at the same time, understanding, of course, that there is no spoon, and then this isn't really a new story. This kind of thing has been happening across the United States ever since we've been invaded. And it's been going on certainly in numerous communities that are being overrun by illegal aliens. It's not just Haitians. I mean, it's numerous other cultures as well. But the satanic nature and the witchcraft nature of a lot of these Haitians is really interesting. So the aspect that really is getting lost when it comes to all of the duck and cat eating conversation, which is true. This is not a new thing, and it's not even new in Ohio. Haitians eating cats and eating wildlife is not unusual. That occurs. Central Ohio, for example, around the Columbus area, is surrounded with Somalis. You know, they live with one another. They have their own practices. They do their own things. I, of course, don't agree with any of it, but they do what they do, and that's the way that is. And it's awful. But again, it's an election year, so all of this is being highlighted now, which again is not a bad thing. It's a good thing that it be highlighted. But one of the things that's being lost in the middle of all of this is it's not just animals, four-legged or two-legged or winged animals that are being killed. It's citizens. Numerous citizens are being killed by illegal aliens all of the time. The entire aspect of Haitians being able to drive automobiles illegally in the United States baffles my mind. How are these individuals getting driver's licenses? They're not. They're just finding automobiles, or someone's giving them a car, or they're taking, they're buying stolen automobiles with the cash that they're being given by our government, and then driving around and wrecking these automobiles. And they're killing people. They're killing Americans. So I know that a lot of people were talking about a father who lost his son on a school bus that was hit by a Haitian. And his son ended up dying as a result of being inside of the school bus. And then the father went on a virtue signaling, tirade during a Springfield speech, if that's where the speech was given. I don't know if it was city council or some other place, but either way, he went on a run basically saying that he wished that his son had been killed by a 60-year-old white man, because if that had been the case, then he wouldn't have received all the hatred about illegal aliens and illegal Haitians that he's received on social media and the letters and the phone calls and blah, blah, blah. You can't fix the brainwashed mind of a leftist. They're too far gone. Again, it's the 4 to 6% of the population that are lost forever. Again, whether that be physically, mentally, what have you, they're gone. These people are refusing to learn because they're refusing to ask questions and see the bigger picture, even if the problem takes one of their own loved ones' lives. They still can't see the problem when it's in front of, when it's sitting in their lap and slapping them across the face. So human lives being lost in all of this is a constant. That's a constant. Again, it's right up there with the cat eating and the duck eating and the goose eating and all of that stuff. I mean, that's real. This is not fake. This is not blown out of proportion. It hasn't been, quote unquote, debunked. This has been going on in Ohio for a while. I live here. I mean, this is a thing. But it's happening where you live too. If wherever you live is being flooded with third world individuals, they bring their culture with them. They don't just go, oh, look, a grocery store. Wow, cereal. Great. No, they don't know anything about that. The only thing that they know where they come from is they see a wild animal on the ground or somebody walking around, or, oh, look, that thing has a collar around its neck. Makes it even easier to capture and throw on the grill. I mean, they bring their behaviors with them. And by the way, there's no integration. We can't integrate with these people. And they cannot integrate with us. Our country was built on European Christianity. That's supposed to be civilized, but these are not civil individuals. They know nothing of it. They are not manners-driven people. There are some who are Christians, but they are few and far between. So it's not a matter of, well, we just need to give them time to integrate, and perhaps they need some integration training, and maybe they just need some re-education. While you're trying to re-educate these people, they're going to cut your limbs off and chew on them like a turkey leg. These people cannot be integrated into our society under any circumstance. There is no level of quote-unquote re-education that can take place. I mean, what's the assessment for that? Stop ripping on Teddy's arm. No, don't pull it off. And then they rip it off. No, we told you not to rip off Teddy's arm. Oh, now you're eating it. Well, we told you in class number 4 that ripping off arms and eating them is not a good idea. Uh-oh, here comes somebody with a machete. Now don't cut their head off. Don't do that either. In class number 5, we said no cutting of the head. Remember that. Remember your assessment. I mean, you can't talk with these people. Kim Carter, by the way, nurse friend, she drives through Springfield for her home nursing when she does her home visits on her nursing tour of the individuals that she visits who are in their homes, who are in dire straits on their own, health-wise. But she texted me and she goes, this is all 100% real. She said, I'm not the only one that has to travel to and through Springfield. And she said, Haitians are everywhere. And now she's apparently taking footage of what's going on there. And she's doing whatever she can to tell their bosses, look, we can't go there anymore. I mean, she's not looking for an excuse to not do her job. She's not lazy. It's a matter of safety. There was another woman, too, I believe in the Springfield City Council meeting recently, who, again, got up to the lectern and she was talking about how it's not just about cats and ducks. She said, this is about my mother-in-law. She goes, my mother-in-law was murdered by a Haitian simply picking up her trash cans at the end of her driveway. A Haitian was flying down the road in an automobile. They didn't have a driver's license. It wasn't their car. Clearly no insurance. I mean, that's laughable that anybody would think a Haitian driving a car would have insurance. But either way, they ended up running over the woman and killing her. And there's been no consequences. None. The individual was not arrested. They may have been detained, but they were let go, and there's been no consequences whatsoever. No one's been charged with murder, manslaughter, vehicular manslaughter, nothing. But remember, there's a dad in Georgia whose son was at least one person who shot people in a school, allegedly, and he's in jail. The father is still in jail for something he didn't even do. But on the flip side of the coin, you have an illegal Haitian who ran over an old woman who's lived in Springfield for 40 years, was retired, elderly, and nothing, not a peep. They just want people to, again, not hear it, not pay attention to it. It's all imaginary. There's nothing imaginary about it. In fact, here's Dave Yost, who I'm not a fan of, claims to be a Republican, but he's the Ohio Attorney General, and he said this on the 9th of September. It says, Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost today directed his office to research legal avenues to stop the federal government from sending an unlimited number of migrants to Ohio communities. Well, first of all, as I've said before, Haitians didn't make their way to Ohio or other northern states by accident. There's a very specific state, a couple of them, as a matter of fact, down south below the Mason-Dixon line that have Republican governors who were rather boastful out in the open about sending Haitians and other illegals to northern states. Greg Abbott, of course, of Texas, and Ron DeSantis of Florida. So the first thing I'd do is I'd get on the phone with those two nitwits and I'd say, hey, stop. Just cut it out. We have enough up here. We didn't want them in the first place, but you thought human trafficking of anybody, in particular Haitians or others, was a good idea. Well, it isn't. The unfortunate part, of course, is the backstop that exists in the Ohio government is Mike DeWine and his stupid wife. These two individuals love Haitians more than Haitians love themselves. And again, why is that the case? Why are they so in love with Haiti? Why are they hell-bent on, and have been for many, many, many years, in bringing Haitian children to Ohio? Who else likes Haitian children? What other political family and political individuals like Haitian kids? The Clintons, maybe? This document goes on. It says, the directive comes in response to concerns from communities, particularly Springfield and Clark County, that have been inundated and overwhelmed by surging migrant populations. The sudden and extreme population growth has strained the city's economic, medical, and educational systems. Quote, this is absurd. Springfield has swollen by more than a third due to migrants, Yost said. He went on and said, how many people can they be expected to take? They shouldn't take any. They shouldn't have taken one. It's human trafficking. That's a crime. What was the limits to the federal government's power, he said? Could the federal government simply funnel into Ohio all the millions of migrants flooding in under the current administration's watch? There's got to be a limiting principle. Well, it's not limiting. There should be a zero principle. There should be no one is allowed here. We're going to find a way to get this disaster in front of a federal judge. It goes on and says, Yost said his office will exhaust all possibilities to address the worsening situation. The problem is not migrants. It is way, way too many migrants in a short period of time. This is where Yost is wrong again. Yes, the problem is migrants. It's not the frequency or the amount. Those are problems, but it's the fact that we're taking them to begin with. That's the problem. So he's wrong here. Again, this is the illusion of political parties in a nutshell. He went on and said the problem is a massive increase in the population without any communication or assistance from the federal government. No, that's not the problem either. Asking the federal government for more assistance in the problem they're creating, you have to be high. He must be on drugs. It says, in addition to straining available resources, locals have complained of migrants causing car crashes, stealing property, including livestock, squatting in homes, and killing wildlife for food. They're murdering citizens. Put the cats and ducks aside for a minute. They're murdering citizens. Here's the final quote. It says, quote, Ohio is a great place to work and live, Yost said, but overwhelmingly are small towns with massive migrant populations without any coordination or assistance from the federal government is changing that in front of our eyes, unquote. We don't need the Fed's help. Ohio, like every state in the United States, can be self-sufficient if they have a government that just does what their state constitution says. But we don't have that. Which means, again, what? It means we're at war. We're already in a civil war here. Every state and every citizen is in a civil war with their own government. The question again is, what side are you going to pick? Are you going to side with government, or are you going to side with a free and open citizen who knows who the real enemy is? This statement by Yost is beyond ignorant, and he's a dope. So trust me, as someone who lives here in Ohio, Mike DeWine is a criminal, his wife is a criminal, and Dave Yost is a complete moron. And by the way, Tory says, famously Tory Maris, She lives here also, and she knows what's going on, and she hates it just like I do. She hates it like every Ohioan does. Now there's this. Again, it'll be interesting to see what comes from this. But apparently, there's a petition for the recall of the entire city commission in the city of Springfield, Ohio. And here's what this draft petition says. It says, quote, pursuant to Section 59 of the charter, the chapter, of the city of Springfield, Ohio, the city, we, the undersigned, have subscribed our signatures on various separate parts of this petition, when aggregated together, constitute at least 500 residents of the city who are duly registered to vote in municipal elections. Hereby submit our petition to recall and remove the entire membership of the Springfield City Commission. The commission, quote unquote, namely Mayor Rob Rue, Assistant Mayor David Estrup, and Commissioners Crystal Brown, Bridget Houston, and Tracy Tackett. It says the grounds for seeking the recall and removal of the entire membership of the commission are as follows, and there's 3 points. Number 1, the current members of the commission have breached their public responsibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, pick a city council in America that hasn't. I mean, pick one. Pick one that hasn't breached their public responsibilities. In the town where I live, they've agreed step by step to become a sanctuary city. This is a small university town with less than, I would say at this point, after the jab toll over the last 3 years, we're probably down, a few thousand residents of people who used to live here. So we're probably down to maybe 25,000 people. But don't worry, they're erecting a small transportation center next to railroad tracks on the south side of town. And people expect what to happen? Oxford, Ohio is going to be the next Springfield. Mark my words. The second point on this petition says the following. The commission has created an unattainable housing crisis by purposefully abandoning prior practices for the consistent code of enforcement. The commission has permitted unscrupulous landlords to proliferate unsafe tenants, which have caused their occupants to live in substandard conditions, have created substantial occupational hazards for key safety officers who are dispatched to such tenants, and cause long-term residents to be squeezed out of the local housing market. Yep. Same thing with the workforce. They're hiring browns. They're not hiring whites. Number 3, the commission has failed to maintain an adequate police department. Again, get in line. No kidding. Several years ago, the city voters imposed on themselves a special real estate tax, levy, to employ an additional 24 police officers. The use of the tax levy funds was limited by the charter to employing and retaining the additional police officers. Again, they gave themselves raises with the money. They didn't hire more cops. Instead of employing the additional 24 police officers, it says, the commissioners have spent the restricted funds for purposes other than the intended police officer compensation. The commissioners have caused the city's police department to be understaffed, thereby impairing the ability of the police to promptly respond to resident calls and to regularly enforce traffic and other laws, thus undermining the order of and peace within the city. And finally, it says, in conjunction with this petition, we have appointed the following committee to represent us in pursuing the recall of the entire commission. Chairman, treasurer, etc., etc. And that's the end of it. The founding fathers right now are spinning in their graves because they'd be stacking bodies right now. They wouldn't be signing petitions or drafting petitions. This is a local government in Springfield, Ohio, that has told you that they are violating the law and they don't care what you think. That makes them, as even Abraham Lincoln once said, a government that you have the ability, constitutional right, to remove by force. You don't have to sign a petition, just remove them. And if the police get in your way, then the police are traitors to our country and to your city. And what's the penalty for treason? This is all boiling here, and it's about to boil over. Speaking in these meetings, signing petitions, drafting this, drafting that, with legal representation on the other side of the fence, representing city council and the police department and whatever else. All these people created this problem. Now they're attempting to remove the people who created the problem. Again, with what? With paper? This isn't going to work. It's just not going to work. They may resign on their own accord. That's possible. They need to be removed by force. There are more citizens of that town than there are police officers. There are more citizens of that town than there are elected officials. Everybody in that town needs to get together and remove them by force. That's my 2 cents. Hell, what about the Haitians then? Then they need to be the target. It's one way to take back your country because it's been the way in the past. This is what happens. When governments make laws that are unconstitutional, the law is null and void. Now, with that said, who do you think's funding all of this? Who could it be that's allowing all of this to happen? Certainly from a Haitian standpoint, and moving them from point A to point B. If you said Jews, you'd be correct. Here's a post. It says the following, along with, of course, an article to verify it. The Haitian Jew who engineered the collapse of Haiti and subsequent migration of cannibal Haitians into America via Jewish NGOs is called Gilbert Biggio. The Biggio family are Jews who immigrated to the late 19th and early 20th centuries from the Middle East. His son, Reuven, was an honorary consul of Israel in Haiti every single time. Biggio funded the gangs that tore the country apart. And here's an article from the outlet Politics titled Dirty Money, the billionaire oligarch who's enabling Haiti's murderous gangs. Businessman Gilbert Biggio is facing penalties for his alleged involvement with the violence that's engulfed the country during Prime Minister Ariel Henry's corrupt reign. Unquote. Shocking, I know. Being sarcastic, of course, it's not shocking at all. Let me mention this now, and this is kind of a big deal. This is a war game scenario. This is certainly a very specific philosophical viewpoint that I agree with. There's no doubt about it. This was a post that was on the Chan boards, and I don't have a date on this, my apologies, but this needs to be read and it needs to be understood because this is something that local individuals and Americans cannot comprehend. Although there is ample evidence that this has already happened. Certainly back in 2020, 2021, we've seen the way that politicians have used police have allowed themselves to be used by politicians, and all of that has, of course, occurred against the free American citizen with constitutional rights. With all of that said, why are they bringing in illegal aliens? It's not just race replacement. That is a big deal, and that is part of it. The killing of the white race, and of course the virtue signaling and the useful idiot that is allowing all of this to happen as far as the communist Marxist is concerned. But here's what this post says, and this is one to chew on without a doubt. It says, quote, "They want to change this, I think, make sure immigrants are everywhere and not just concentrated in Amsterdam or something, which is like a modern-day Babylon." It says this is because non-white migrants are the system's enforcers. They are basically the West's version of the NKVD, but instead of the state ordering them to suppress the people directly, the state just selectively allows the immigrants to get away with any crimes that have the same effect as to what they wished they could order a secret police force to do directly. Now, I'm not done. There's 2 more paragraphs, but that alone should make sense to everybody. This is why city councils aren't doing anything about this. This is why they're allowing these individuals to not just come here, but to destroy and murder and vandalize. Because they're allowing it. Which means if they're doing it, well, then it's just their culture, or they just don't know how to behave, or whatever excuse the politicians who are allowing it are saying to the people who are being victimized by it. It goes on and it says, quote, "The migrants learn which crimes are the approved crimes, just like how an AI learns. They start out committing crimes basically at random, but over time they pick up on the patterns on what crimes are punished, harmful to the system, and which crimes are not punished, beneficial to the system, and this causes them all to gravitate toward becoming system enforcers. The migrants themselves aren't aware of their role in the system. They're just blindly following the path of least resistance the state sets up for them. But the state is aware and sets up the reward mechanism to create a system to suppress the citizens that doesn't rely on direct orders, etc., that could be traced back to them." See, the local politicians would say, well, if something bad happened, it's not our fault. Yes, we were the ones who brought them here. They were seeking asylum. That's not our fault. We're helping them, they'll say. Even though they'll rape, murder, steal, vandalize, etc., etc. But the politician gets off scot-free, so they think. It then finally wraps up and says, quote, "If they were using a secret police, they would slowly lose the trust of the people and begin losing their authority. By distributing migrants everywhere and using the stochastic citizen suppression model, they were able to keep their hands cleaner. People still know they are bringing in migrants. But so long, many people think this is good and nobody can make the connection between selective enforcement and an effective police state where criminals are the police. The system is better able to hide itself. If the state was caught using secret police to suppress voters, they would need to explain themselves. If the state was caught letting in millions of migrants to suppress the people, then you, quote unquote, need to explain yourself since you are now a racist, unquote." By the way, in this post, on at least a couple of occasions, you can clearly see that it's been edited where they took out another derogatory term and they just replaced it with migrants. But you get the gist of it. And again, this is legit. This is exactly what they are doing. They're using this as politicians and local politicians and local police forces to insulate themselves from any wrongdoing. But it has to be chewing away at some of their consciences, if they even have a conscience anymore. It's to use their stupid term, it's unsustainable. This will end in war. There's almost no way around it. You can't fill small towns with these kinds of people and expect individuals to not lose their shit, who have lived here for their entire lives. Not to mention, this is the thing again that the left has a very short memory of, if they're even aware, is that it's notorious that this has happened time and time again, is you have the very useful idiot implementing policies like this that they think somehow benefit whoever it is that they're bringing in. And then the very individual who supports and facilitates the transfer of these illegal aliens into their local areas, they're the ones that end up getting killed by the illegal aliens themselves. It's like the Black Lives Matter activists who scream Black Lives Matter at the top of their lungs and then they're beaten to death by a black guy. or they're beaten to death by, or rather shot to death by a black woman. Where's your Black Lives Matter movement now? And the person, of course, who got beat to death or shot to death happens to be a black person too. This has happened. This has happened all the way through 2020, 2021, 2022, right through the current day. Again, these virtue signaling leftists don't understand that they're actually inviting in their own demise on multiple levels, not just the people that they're bringing in, but the local people who live here legally, who are remarkably pissed off. Now you've got two groups of individuals who hate you. And they're willing to do away with you for two completely separate reasons. One of them wants to just use you as an appetizer, and the other one wants you gone because you're a corrupt criminal. Allowing people to come here who want to use you as a side dish. This is a huge problem, and it's not going away. And I should add this too, if you think that the National Guard showing up to collect these illegal aliens, when the time comes, if that time comes, which you've heard me say before, we have to see this. There is no way that when we see this, that there isn't going to be shooting. There's absolutely no way. We cannot let these people stay here. I don't care what country they came from. If they crossed the border or were flown here by some NGO, then you cut off the transportation outlets and the groups and the NGOs that brought them here in the first place. You arrest all of them, you round all them up, and you toss them into prison and you throw away the key. Then you go after the actual people that have infiltrated these towns and cities. When that happens, there will be blood. No doubt about it. You don't actually think these people are going to go willingly back to their own countries, do you? That's not going to happen. These people are going to fight to stay. They will literally fight. They will stab, shoot, claw, run you over with a car, burn something. They will do all of this in order to stay and to flee. I'm telling you, people had better arm themselves. You better start locking your doors, keeping your head on a swivel, and paying attention to what goes on. Because the closer we get to D-Day of that happening, you're going to see more physical movement in the towns and cities where you live with these people losing their shit. Guaranteed. They're going to steal cars. They're going to carjack people with machetes and knives. They're going to get in cars and, again, try to leave the area. They're going to get in car accidents. They're going to kill other people trying to leave the area by getting in car accidents and a number of other things. They're going to rob particular places because they're going to need to eat. When they're not, of course, chewing on, Teddy and Sally from down the street. I mean, they're going to break into stores and loot the joints. This will happen too. But look at even that, which, by the way, this train of thought that I'm on here ties perfectly to this other post I wanted to read, which again sets up why is it that the culture of robbing and stealing in stores has been normalized? Could it be for a scenario just like that? So that these stores all back down when the illegals who are already here have their backs put up against a metaphorical wall of being threatened that they're going to be gathered up and tossed into the back of a military plane and taken back to their home country? These people are going to bust into these stores and shopping centers and they're going to take whatever the fuck they want. Which means if you're working there or you're just casually hanging out or doing a little shopping for Christmas season, I'm telling you, you're putting yourself in danger, I think, because there's already a mentality in all of these stores to let them steal. The CEOs of these companies have told their managers to tell their employees, if they steal something, let them. Don't stop them, let them. That's not going to work out for people. I mean, it hasn't worked out at all. Not for anybody who works in these environments, but it's creating a mind frame and a mindset that's going to allow this to continue to happen. Let me read this post. This again was on one of the boards I follow, and it's indicative of the mind frame of the individuals who work in these department stores. It was titled, "Saw a Theft Today, Nobody Cared." It says, quote, "I'm waiting to check out at a Dollar General store," notorious for looting, by the way. And it says, "and everyone in line turns to see the spectacle of a twitching 6-foot-tall, skinny, nappy-headed N-word waltz right past the checkout with an armful of crap and continue out the front door." It says, "While the N-word she-boon in front of me is calling out, 'Hey, nah, nah,' to the thief." It says, "The two cashiers struggled and one said, 'Oh, well.' He goes on to say, quote, 'We're not supposed to stop them. They tell us to call the cops, but what are they going to do?' Unquote." The post went on and said, "In my best poker face, I say out loud, quote, 'Okay then, see you later,' unquote, and I step out of line and start heading for the door, items in hand. It was a joke, of course, but I turned around and everyone just kind of had a, quote, 'Why are you stopping?' unquote, look on their face. I got back in line and the cashier did another shrug and head shake, meaning he didn't give a fuck one way or the other. A snapshot of the absolute state of America," unquote. Yes, it was intentional. Getting these stores to normalize individuals looting them and knowing that the employees inside are being told to not do anything about it. And if they call the police, as the employees themselves said, what are the cops actually going to do? There aren't enough cops to do anything. They might be able to stop one or two people in a very crowded area, maybe, if those people are detained. But if a group of illegals, as you've already seen on footage, with endless, again, and they're typically black, but either way, these massive groups and these, again, massive swarms of people rushing a store to loot the ever-living hell out of it, there are not enough cops to stop that, which means the cops have one of two decisions to make: open fire or let them go. What do you think is going to happen? This is, again, being normalized. It's already been normalized. The scene has already been set here. The stage already has all the props on it ready to go, and everybody's already in their places, metaphorically, with the exact mind frame that the Jewish lobby enemy wants them to have, which is, let yourself be robbed. Let laws be broken. It's already happening. Again, the pre-programming of this is all by design. This is something that is difficult for your average person to comprehend. They don't live that way, and they certainly don't think that way. They don't think multiple dimensions in separate directions about why things are happening the way that they're happening. There is a name and a plan for everything that is happening, good and bad. There's also this, and I wanted to read this because I thought this was interesting. Again, this has to do with people not being able to comprehend what would happen in the future in these scenarios and how not being prepared is not going to be a good thing. It was titled the following. I put this on Gab, and there's only one aspect of this that I disagree with, and I'll let you know what it is here in a minute. But it was titled, "Absolutely Fight for Our Country, but be realistic and get your head out of American politics for a minute." It says, quote, "I hope everyone is taking this seriously. The handful of people forcing this nightmare on us are the biggest threat to the world, Jews." It says, "We haven't seen anything yet either. It's just getting started. I'm going to say it even if Trump is president, he's only going to buy time, not much time. The chaos the leftist elite will unleash isn't going to be anything like the past. Look at the UK right now. Ask yourself, how would a Trump administration round up tens of millions of illegals and deport them or take away their benefits? If the illegals are stripped of the EBT cash housing, they will become desperate overnight. This is a massive global coup, and the same exact thing is happening in nearly all Western countries in real time. Look ahead 6 months, a year. Prepare your families now to survive. Food, water, hygiene, medicine, defense. Ham radio, shortwave, CB radio. Emergency frequencies printed on paper, firewood, heat for the winter, seeds to grow food, offline entertainment for the children. The children must be comfortable and unaware of what is happening to an extent. I'm going to stop it right there. I like that. I like all of that post thus far. As far as children being unaware of what's happening, that's a parental decision. And you're going to have to make that decision. I'm not going to look at anybody and say that if your child is of this age or that age, then you should tell them or not tell them what's really happening in the world. Me personally, if I were a parent, I'd be the kind of parent who would tell my children exactly what's happening all of the time. That, of course, requires a knowledgeable parent to know what's going on, rather than a parent who looks at their child and says, well, I don't know what's going on. This all seems strange, but I don't know what's really happening. I mean, that family is going to be screwed. But not telling your kids what is going on is more likely to confuse them than not. The truth is only confusing if people believe lies, but if someone doesn't believe anything or doesn't even understand what's going on, nor even seeks to understand, that's going to make things confusing for not just the individual or the child. It'll make things confusing for everyone. So I'm going to leave that up to everybody else, but I would tell children what was happening. It goes on here. It says spiritual health and mental strength are critical. It says, I'm not political, but I see exactly what is going on, and time is short. When the U.S. goes, the rest of the world will spiral faster than the blink of an eye. The cities will be the most dangerous at first, so get out while you can. It won't be like BLM Antifa in the slightest. We cannot imagine the main events following. Most importantly, get right with God, unquote. As I said earlier, well, I should say this. It's, of course, true, without a doubt, the business of preparation and having things on hand, without a doubt, and not falling into some kind of a lull regarding all of that. Everybody should be prepared regarding that, no doubt about it. Jesse James spends a great deal of time talking about it on his show. There's ample things that people can do. I've brought up some of it here on this show as well. You're smart people, you can figure it out. With that aside for a second, and dating back to something I just said earlier in this episode, this is something that the left can't comprehend. Because here's what will happen. Just like the virtue signaling left always does. The virtue signaling left will reach its hand out to these illegals who are panicking. And the virtue signaling left will be slaughtered by the illegals when they reach out their hand in an effort to quote-unquote help them. The savage illegals, with everything to lose, so they think now, because they're about to be shipped back to the shithole they came from, they will take the lives of the very people that brought them here in the first place, because those will be the only people stretching their hands out to help them. It won't be us. We'll know what's going on. We'll stay as far away from them as humanly possible. We'll defend our land and our homes. But I can see mayors and city council members and other individuals saying, okay, all you illegals come here. We want to help you. We understand that, this administration wants to send you back and we disagree with that. So we're going to give you this and we're going to give you that. You'd better believe that those illegals are going to turn on them in the blink of an eye. And that'll happen because it's already happened. Again, that's a scenario in the future, but I'm telling you, you back these savages into a corner. They're not going to go quietly. And if they even ask for help, you actually think they're going to do what? Trust local officials because the local officials, government officials say you should trust us? You've got to be kidding me. You have to be joking. They're going to take full advantage of these people right down to ripping their limbs off. This is going to get weird, ladies and gentlemen. It's going to get weird. It already is weird. Okay, here's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to move on here. A couple of interesting things. I think both of these are good things. No doubt about it. First of all, very quickly, again, it's starting to show some cracks in the matrix here, which is a beautiful thing to watch. And if you can pick up on this kind of stuff, it's a sign of the times that, again, things are changing. Not saying it's not going to get violent and strange in the future, but people are waking up, and this is a good thing. Excuse me. On Judicial Watch's YouTube channel, just the other day on 9/11, they aired the security footage from the Pentagon showing a missile hitting the Pentagon. That very famous footage of no plane going into the Pentagon. Again, this was on Judicial Watch's YouTube channel. There was a time when that would not have existed. And there was a time when even finding that video went from being very easy to find. Actually, it went from being impossible to find at the time to being very easy to find on the internet. And then existing on YouTube. And then, of course, being scrubbed from YouTube. And, of course, never being affiliated with any government or government oversight Washington, D.C. based YouTube channel to now, all of a sudden, being on, of all sites, Judicial Watch's YouTube channel. I find that incredible. I think that's a very good thing. There's also this, and I'm going to play the audio for this just because it's cool. There's apparently a TikTok trend going around where individuals are filming themselves reading Adolf Hitler's speeches and or captions or excerpts of Mein Kampf in using the AI voice translator that is available. And there are many AI voice translators, but this is just one of them. And I'm just going to play it. And it's a female and she's mouthing these words using the Adolf Hitler AI turned to English translator. So give this a listen in 3, 2, 1.
In these so-called democratic countries, the people as such are not taken into consideration at all. The only thing that counts is the existence of these few creators of democracy. These parties are as different from each other as they used to be in our country. Do you know the old parties? Everything was always the same. Most of the time, even in this country, the parties are divided into families. One is conservative and the other is liberal, and the third one is employed by the Workers' Party. It is possible that all three family members are together every year and they govern in detail. They decide on their future stance. In addition, the chosen people is a community everywhere, and now actually all of these organizations move through the government, which is why nothing comes of it, even if there is an opposition. The opposition is actually always the same.
And an excellent point, too. Not wrong. Still not wrong. Okay. So that's a neat trend. Again, people are waking up. This is a beautiful thing. You know, they're doing that thing called reading. They're doing that thing called watching and listening and asking questions and critically thinking and shedding the skin of the lies that have surrounded them their whole lives, and they're unlearning, which is fantastic. So keep it up. Absolutely keep it up. Okay. Education-related stuff. Couple of funny things here, but before I get to the funny stuff, and I've got a couple of serious things here, but first off, I should say this, just one quick correction. At the beginning of the last episode, when I was talking about David Bothist, a local school board member who's resigned here, and rightfully so, but I got a date wrong, and it had to do with when he took office. He was elected in November of 2021, and then was sworn in, I believe, in January of 2022. I think that's when the swearing in takes place, is the very next year. Either way, it was that month, of course, and immediately soon after when he was soliciting money to pay himself back for Super Bowl tickets, of which, of course, I have ample proof that that's the case, because, the internet is forever. And when you take screenshots of everything and you have this ample evidence, and then, of course, you submit said ample evidence to an ethics committee, well, they have a responsibility to go over that evidence. But I got the dates wrong earlier. I think I said something like 2020 and 2021 instead of 21 and 22. So either way, my apologies on that. Second of all, the superintendent and the treasurer are apparently reworking their contracts and have had their contracts reworked in this town, which again, they claim that they are in financial dire straits, even though they have plenty of money, and continue to basically manipulate the public into, adopting their policies on this, that, or the other. But the superintendent and the treasurer are essentially stealing from everybody now by having their contracts reworked. And they're actually engaging in something that's rather funny, where they're taking things that were once free to them, like the monthly cost of their automobile, and they're simply taking that money, and instead of making it a separate cost, they're just throwing it into their regular salary. So again, it's the illusion of giving them a pay raise, even though it's they're basically just giving themselves the money they were already giving themselves in the first place. The superintendent in the town where I live, he makes approximately $148,000 in change. And the treasurer makes approximately $140 some odd thousand in change. It's completely outrageous. Again, they cut endless individuals and they hire endless other useless individuals while again raking in salaries of that magnitude. It's beyond unethical, to say the least. They're robbing the place. So, yeah, I don't know how long you can keep robbing a place if you don't have a license. It'll be interesting to see if they keep them in the future. Time will tell. Anyway, with that said, there's also this, and this was very funny. In fact, I immediately laughed out loud when this was sent my way, and this was sent to me by Jesse James out of the Oxford, Michigan area, even though he doesn't live there. But as you might be aware, having covered what's gone on there before, they're looking for a couple of board members because 2 of them resigned. And there are Facebook posts where, of course, individuals are sharing their thoughts and ideas, and certain individuals are talking about running for these school board positions. So he sends me some screenshots of this, which, again, I couldn't help but laugh. It just tells you how not only brainwashed people are, but how there are awake individuals out there trying to wake up other individuals. So it says this, and this is on the Oxford, Michigan Election Information and Talking Points Facebook page, who the top contributor is apparently a Jennifer LaBelle, who is clearly dead asleep, which is unfortunate, and incapable of thought, which is even more dangerous, I think. But they said the following. They said, local politics. A person running for school board believes Sandy Hook was a staged event and not a horrific mass shooting. What's everyone's thoughts? Are you supporting this candidate? And then it has a list of names here. And it says, feel free to tag others. This is an important local issue. So they took a picture of this particular person's post. And it says the following. It says, Rick Schneider for Oxford School Board November 5th election. It says, I elected to run after attending many meetings of Oxford School Board and seeing that we don't have a voice. Someone pointed out school boards get to fill vacancies more often than electing board members in November elections. Selection rather than election, quote unquote. They also said, doing what I could to keep honor community health out of a permanent office in the middle school. Honor Community Health, apparently, is some corrupt health organization, I would assume. It says, doing a detailed review of Guidepost Solutions, quote unquote, they are not our friend and I intend to show it. It says, noticing that after we removed God from the schools, everything went to hell. No, I won't be retracting that statement. Then they wrote this. They said, additionally, and this is the part that was highlighted and selected out by this Jennifer LaBelle gal. It was highlighted on this guy's post. He said, I highly recommend viewing this documentary on the Sandy Hook school shooting. Despite what the courts say, this was a crisis actor event. The Oxford High School shooting, obviously real, has similarities. And then they link the BitChute link, which was titled, it's the documentary, one of a number of very famous Sandy Hook documentaries titled, We Need to Talk About Sandy Hook. And they link the BitChute link. They said, in this part that gets cut off, they said, I have a background in advanced engineering that includes a lot of math and science. I love being in something. And then it's cut off. She would have done well to post the entire thing. Either way, here's what they went on and said. I might be reading these out of order, so forgive me, but this Jennifer LaBelle gal was apparently responding or asking Bobby Roop a question and said, Bobby Roop, I support those versus bans, Georgia. And then it says the FBI talk to them, flag, and have them circle back and talk to them. I don't know what she's talking about. The Georgia school shooting, I guess. And then she responded back again and said, Bobby Roop, I'm sorry, I can't support Flat Earth in any way and need to block you. Your opinion matters until you think the Earth's flat or Sandy Hook's a hoax. And then this Jennifer LaBelle gal again said, Kyle Woody, are you comfortable voting for someone who believes such nonsense? In his bio, he states he's a Republican. Odd, according to the state of Michigan school board elections, are to be nonpartisan. It's why there's no straight ticket option. I feel like this is where we need to research and follow our gut. Well, first of all, if this Jennifer LaBelle gal thinks that school board members aren't partisan, she's a fool. Anyway, there's this other thread that he sent me. This post is from a Krista Greer Sonato. And she says, Jennifer LaBelle, we seem to have a corner on the crazy farm. Jennifer LaBelle responds and says, Krista Greer Sonato, every time I think we've tapped out crazy, this tops the podcast guy. The podcast guy. Who are you referring to? Are you referring to me? When I showed up in your shitty little school district and told everybody that most school shootings are fake? I love it. This is absolutely hilarious. She goes on, let's see. Oh, yeah, okay. The Krista Greer Sonato gal replies and says, Jennifer LaBelle, my friends who moved away are flooded by this nonsense. They truly cannot comprehend the psychology behind what draws people to believe this nonsense. They literally think I am exaggerating. But this is a public group, so they see it. They just still cannot believe it, unquote. Again, I'm sure the conversation was lengthy between these nitwits, but this is funny. Here's all this proves, and you'd love to sit these people down and explain to them just a couple of things, just for fun. All they have to do is click on the documentary and watch it. It's 2.5 hours long. Do you not have 2.5 hours to learn something? Or to have potentially your belief system shattered under the weight of the truth? And the answer is no, they don't. And that's the sad state of affairs. These individuals are afraid to click a play button and then watch and listen and piece things together and think. They've literally been stripped of the ability to think because again, they don't want to be lied to. Number one, they don't want to have their belief system shattered, like I said, under the weight of truth, but also that they don't want to look like a fool for being wrong this whole time and then having to delete their previous posts where they were talking like someone who clearly is uneducated and doesn't know what's going on. It's just too many reversals for them. And the fear of having to potentially reverse something. But it's also, again, these individuals refusing to break through the matrix, even though this is a huge glitch in the matrix, which is great. It's a crack in the matrix, if not a downright break or shatter. You've got individuals in this chat group openly admitting people to open their mind, and then you have individuals saying, nuh-uh, keep them closed. Keep your minds closed. Who are these crazy people? How on earth could these people believe such a thing? That's the wrong question to ask. You shouldn't ask, how is it that people can believe such a thing? The question you should ask yourselves is, why is it that you don't want to look into it? That's the only question that needs asking. And it's the only one that has yet to be answered. So again, to post this to this Krista Greer Sonato gal, why is it that you're afraid to hit the play button? Remember the old days when you'd be in the library as a kid, or who knows, maybe you weren't this way. It's hard to tell. Same thing like in health class when you were a kid, and you knew that the book or the magazine that you were about to look through was gonna have some gross pictures in it or something, like sexually transmitted diseases or whatever. And you would sort of very, hesitantly grab the page, and you'd start to turn it, and you'd wince, and you'd go, I don't know if I want to touch this page or not. I don't know if I want to see what's behind this particular page, or again, what's behind the metaphorical door. This is exactly what these people have a problem with. They have a problem hitting a play button, which is today's technological gross page, so they think. So they insulate themselves. They refuse to hit play. These are not well-read people. If you were to look at these people and say, what was the last nonfiction book you ever read? They'd go, I don't read. And then they'd go, I don't know, college. Again, it's embarrassing. These people just don't want to learn. But these are the people running for these positions, and these are the people generally winning these positions. The people who refuse to learn. The irony of that. It being an education school board position, after all. Because if you know the truth, as we do, and we continue to learn what that is, and all the different dimensions and avenues that can take you in, which isn't a bad thing, it's called thinking. If you were to hold one of these positions as a school board member, for example, you would have to tell the truth. You would actually have a biblical, heavenly, godly responsibility to do so. So if such an individual runs for school board who knows that Sandy Hook was fake, that Uvalde was fake, that Nashville was fake, that some school shootings are real, others are manufactured, but that they are all designed to strip you of your rights, psychologically torture you, and take your guns, that you would have a responsibility to bring that up all of the time in these school board meetings, because you would have endless people doing one of two things. Actually, they do one of three things. You would have a group of individuals immediately dismissing you. Those would obviously be your dumbest humans that exist around you. Then you would have individuals agreeing with you because they already know what the truth is. And then you would have a segment of individuals who would sit somewhere in the middle, and they would say, why does this person keep saying this? Why do these people keep bringing this topic up and this subject up? What is going on? Why are they saying all of this? That individual is far more likely to lean toward the group of people who know what's going on already, as opposed to those who will refuse to learn what actually goes on. Again, it's a massive crack in the matrix. I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And again, I have no business with that district in the slightest. I made my point. I said what needed to be said in that school board meeting to wake up those dummies. And a lot of people already knew that what I was saying was true. I was even criticized by them. To which point I would say, okay, now get off your ass, go into that school district and do it yourself. Why is it that I had to drive 5 hours to go do it and sit through a 4-hour board meeting in a town in a state where I don't live when you live right there and you can do it? I mean, you saw how they'll react. If you do it, they'll adjourn the meeting and they'll, everybody will leave the room like they did when I was there. But even so, it's worth a shot. Just keep showing up and keep doing it. But again, if you hold any of these positions going forward here in this better new world that we're trying to build, that is based on the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, well, then yeah, if you hold these positions and you know what the truth is, you have a responsibility to share it. There is no doubt about that. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening as always. Have a great weekend, and I will catch you on Monday. Peace. Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.